several days ago, Russian Tu-22 bombers were destroyed on the Russian air base in Novgorod Oblast, several strikes in Moscow. Again, when Putin started this invasion, he promised Russians that they will not feel it. They will not feel consequence. And currently, Russian citizens can see that it was a BS. It was a lie. And one way or another, they see consequence, whether it's strike drones flying and crashing into their bombers parked on the ground, or destroying their factories, producing rockets and missiles, or destroying their ships, some flagships as well. They see that all this has some big consequence, and I'm sure a lot of Russians already understand that they will have to face responsibility in the nearest future.
Before we get started, Operator Starsky, you recently uploaded a YouTube video where you sort of had a day off from the front line and showed your audience what that looks like. What do you think it says about the Ukrainian military versus Russia that your soldiers are getting this proper respite and rest and relaxation from the war?
It's crazy, basically, because even despite the full-scale invasion in our country, we can still have 10 days of a vacation officially, and the government voted and adopted a law that we can have up to a month for vacation now. So basically, we are given time to rest. We are given some time to recover, meet our families, and things like that. But nonetheless, my brigade specifically continues fighting for 535 days already, which is very, very intense. As you probably understand, a lot of guys who fight since the first days, they're very tired emotionally and physically and morally, but we gotta walk this path until the end, because we want to live and we want to be free.
Speaking about morale and how people are feeling, Russian morale is said to be quite severely degraded as the counter-offensive continues. What have you seen of Russia's fighting morale and its impact on their defensive capability?
So my infantry guys claim that if this war was fought using only rifles, we would win, like easily, because Russian training level of Russian morale is very, very, very low. There are motivated units, of course. There are professional units, Russian paratroopers, the VDV and stuff, Wagner as well, but they are a minority. Currently, Ukrainian army is being trained using the NATO standards, using all kinds of experience from our allies and our experience, because one way or another, Ukraine spent 9 years fighting already, and we have very experienced personnel, highly motivated, and the main motivation for us is, of course, is that we want to see our kids living and alive. That is the biggest motivation, because if Russia stops fighting, there will be no war. If Ukraine stops fighting, there will be no Ukraine.
So what do you make of the news of F-16s, which are now confirmed to be going to be delivered by Denmark and the Netherlands?
This is great. Our biggest concern was the number of aircraft, because Ukraine required at least 48 aircraft to be able to accomplish our missions, but Netherlands and Denmark had 40 plus F-16s. So it was a question. And yesterday we learned that we will receive almost all required aircraft, not like 2 or 5 or, which is amazing. And I'm not a pilot, but as a former infantryman, I can say that having combat air support is crucial on a battlefield, because currently people expect from Ukraine to perform a kind of counteroffensive that not a single NATO army can perform without proper weaponry and proper air support, proper artillery, and advanced weaponry that NATO armies have. Uh, this is what we're doing for months already, trying to return our land using whatever we have, and we don't have enough. So having combat air support is crucial. Again, suppressing enemy artillery, suppressing enemy tanks, while performing demining operations and moving closer to enemy positions. It's very, very important.
So you also previously worked with an air defense group. Could these F-16s also have an important role in air defense against Russian strikes that we've seen intensifying, especially on grain silos?
Yes, absolutely, because F-16 aircraft are known for being good, high-quality interceptors, so we can definitely use them to protect our peaceful cities. Of course, we cannot protect all of our cities that require this protection. Again, Ukraine currently has 22 major cities that are still not occupied by Russia, no matter how hard they try, but they fail. But still, this means that we need at least 20 more Patriot systems to be able to protect all of those major cities. Ukraine is a very big country. We have very, very big cities populated by millions, and we have to protect them. And several Patriot systems are not enough. So, of course, F-16s will be absolutely crucial for protection our cities.
Some analysts have highlighted that these F-16s may not come into play until next year. How challenging can it be for Ukraine to take territory without air cover until then?
It is challenging, and it was challenging for already several months. Currently, you can see that Ukraine liberated at least 18 villages and smaller towns along the front lines, which is 18 times more than Russia captured this year, basically. And the counteroffensive is slow but steady. And it's I would say, very, very inconvenient, because here, for example, Russians learned that it's much easier and much more efficient to target, for example, personnel that is trying to get to positions than fighting them at the positions. Therefore, all the vehicles, all the soldiers that try to get to the positions, evacuate wounded, or get back. Russians use UAVs to follow these targets, to recognize them, to strike them, and coordinate artillery strikes. The other day, I visited the artillery positions not far from Bakhmut, basically. And the other next day, I had to be evacuated, and they spotted the car that had to pick me up, and they started shelling this car for the whole night. So I was only evacuated like the next day. It's very hard to even approach your positions currently, and this is one of the biggest problems that we have. It's very, very inconvenient, I would say.
It seems that Russia, in a way, has actually ended up learning a lot from Ukraine's army. How would you say that this counteroffensive has differed somewhat from previous actions, such as those around Kyiv and Kherson and Kharkiv that we saw earlier in the war.
Yes, unfortunately, as we can see, Russians are evolving as well. They have no other choice. For example, if last year Ukraine was the only side that would mostly use drones, like strike drones, FPV, kamikaze drones, this year Russians purchased a lot of those drones and they use it against us as well. Of course, this counteroffensive is very different again because Russians last year they still had this intention to occupy cities like Kyiv and Chernihiv and Sumy and other cities. They had not, I would say, not as many landmines as they use nowadays, because currently they use tremendous amount of landmines, anti-tank mines, anti-personnel mines to defend their positions. They have multiple layers of defense. It was completely different last year. Currently, they don't want to move forward. They only want to defend and keep what they have. So this is a completely different warfare.
We've heard from Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister that Ukraine's forces have captured as much as 43 square kilometers near Bakhmut. How significant are the gains in this area?
It's very significant because on a tactical level, because it gives us opportunity to move our artillery closer a bit and use it, move our other measures, tanks, things like that, and use them against Russian personnel and against Russian artillery, because our counter battery measures are much stronger than Russian counter battery measures, simply for the reason that we have a lot of howitzers and multiple launch rocket systems that were delivered by our allies, and they have better precision, longer range. Therefore, we can combat the Russian artillery much better and much more efficiently. Which doesn't mean that they don't do the same, by the way.
We've heard reports as well from Bloomberg News that the Russians have restructured some of their infantry in the south in order to move airborne forces to Kyiv to support their units there. What have you heard from around Kyiv, and does it look like there's some significant offensive action by Ukraine there?
From what I've heard, yes, there is some rather significant success, not on tactical, but probably on operative level, I would say. But what we see for the past several weeks is that Russians concentrate a lot of their troops near Kupiansk in order to stretch our reserves and probably make our offensive operations in the south and east less effective. Because currently Kupiansk, that area of Kharkiv, is being shelled very, very bad.
What do you say to those who are sort of criticizing how long it has taken for Ukraine to retake some of this territory?
I would say that again, not a single NATO country will be able to do what we are doing without all the required weaponry and support, aviation support, and things like that. People who criticize Ukrainian army for that, they expect our army to do some incredible job that other NATO armies are not capable of doing in same conditions as us. There's a lot of people criticizing the pace of this counteroffensive, but it's steady. It doesn't matter how much time it takes, but we will finish what we started. We will liberate our territories no matter what, because we have no other choice.
And we've also seen more action around Crimea in the past few weeks, with the Kerch Bridge being hit again recently, as well as what you said in a recent video, demilitarization of some Russian troop carriers that use the bridge. What do you make of what we're seeing in and around Crimea?
So first of all, it's an attempt to disrupt Russian logistic lines because currently Crimean bridge is used to deliver Russian personnel and weapons and ammunition and vehicles. And we are talking specifically about the railway, which is the most important part of this bridge. So as soon as it's completely destroyed, then Russian personnel in Crimea will face some very, very big problems. Also, all the strikes that happen in Crimea and also on the Russian territory, because several days ago Russian Tu-22 bombers were destroyed on the Russian air base in Novgorod Oblast, several strikes in Moscow. Again, when Putin started this invasion, he promised Russians that they will not feel it, they will not feel consequence. And currently, Russian citizens can see that it was a BS, it was a lie. And one way or another, they see consequence, whether it's strike drones flying and crashing into their bombers parked on the ground, or destroying their factories, producing rockets and missiles, or destroying their ships, some flagships as well. They see that all this has some big, big consequence, and I'm sure a lot of Russians already understand that they will have to face responsibility in the nearest future.
Next year it will be 10 years since Russian troops first entered Crimea. Is it still possible to liberate that peninsula?
Yes, absolutely. The only condition for that is it must be cut off from Russian territory. We're talking about the bridge, and also we have to eliminate or isolate Russian fleet, because Russian fleet will cause the biggest problem in terms of liberating Crimea. But I believe that it's possible. I'm not a general yet, but I believe that it is.
And do you think that these sea drone attacks that we've been seeing this month and last could play an important role in that?
Yes, absolutely. We saw that those drones appeared, actually turned out to be more efficient than frigates and cruisers, because currently we know that Russians had 6 troop-carrying ships in the Black Sea. Before the invasion, they also brought another 6 ships. And currently 5 of them are out of order. They're not functioning. One flagship was destroyed as well, not by the drones, by the missiles, but still. We can see that we can combat the Russian fleet without having much of our fleet. But the drones, the missiles, the intelligence, reconnaissance, all these matters. And if used properly, it can bring good results.
Operator Sarsky, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.